So this will be some work, guys, from section 8.3, and I'll show you a couple different ways to, as usual, a couple different ways to handle a couple different types of problems. So here's our first example. Excuse me, you see we've got brackets in here now, and as you know, brackets usually refers to multiplication. So we're going to try that way first, and this is called the distributive property. We're going to distribute the 2 to the x and also to the 1.5. So essentially, we're just going to multiply that before we do any other work. So we have then 2x and then 2 by 1.5 be positive 3. And then from here, pretty straightforward, we're going to do we are going to do a negative 3.0 on both sides. And therefore, we'd have 2x equals, that's a 6, by the way. We'd have 4.6. And then our last step would be, of course, divide by 2. And that gives us our x value. Okay, so there's another way to handle this. 2.3. Another way to handle this. I'll move over to the next page. Same problem. And we're going to try and divide first. And some people, as I said, might prefer this better. So what we're going to divide by is the 2. And we're going to divide both sides by the 2. And of course, on this side, it's going to cancel. And we're left with x and 1.5. And the other side, when you divide that by 2, we're going to get 3.8. Excuse me. And then, of course, from here, we're going to do our subtraction, right? We're going to now do negative 1.5. Essentially, it's doing the same steps. You still had a divide by 2 and a subtract here. And I'll show you in a split screen in a second. It just does the same thing in the reverse order. So we have x equals, and then 2.3. So it's really the same idea. See how here we divided by 2 down here. Well, we did a divide by 2 up here. And then we did a subtract. And then second of all, we did a subtract. So same sort of thing, slightly different way to handle that. And that really is example 1 on page 315. So we'll show you a couple, again, same problem, we'll do the same problem 2 different ways. This time we've got some fractions. And we can get rid of these fractions all in one move if we multiply by a common denominator. So if you get the common denominator for 10 and 5, which is 10, you multiply by 10 on this side, and multiply by 10 on this side. So this side's okay. That cancels completely. And we have negative 7. This side, not quite as okay. We're going to have a cancellation here of 2. And so we still have to multiply, though, and this is maybe the tricky part for students. We have to multiply this by 10 and cancel it first, and then we can distribute the 2. So it's 2 times e, and then we'll go to the 2 times the positive 3 as well. So what's nice about this is that we get rid of the both fractions all in one step, and then from here, you know, it's pretty straightforward. We go negative 6 on both sides, and negative 13 equals 2e, and you know the rest. You know, we get better at this as we go along because we do, you know, from here down in almost every problem. So we get negatives. We could leave it at, we better not leave it as that. We better put it in a format like that. Okay, so that's one way to do that problem. Get the common denominator. The tricky part there is to remember to do this thing right here. Right, that's the tricky part. Remember that when you get that cross out or cancel out, if you have a leftover, you have to multiply it by both parts. Okay, so now you can take an extra step, but it's almost a little bit simpler. So if you found this hard, this whole idea hard, then this might appeal to you a little bit better. Just look where the variable is and multiply both sides by the 5. And same thing over here. And again, this is a little longer, but not too bad. Not really any longer. And so this makes a perfect cancellation. So it's really just leaves you 1. I mean, you're still multiplying 1 by e and 1 by 3, but multiplying by 1 doesn't make any difference. So we have e and positive 3. And on the other side, I mean, we can do a couple of things here. We can either multiply 5 by 7 and then divide by 10. Or we can do the canceling in this case, which would give us a 2. And so we'd have negative 7 over 2. Now, the problem with this method is that we still are dealing with a fraction. Whereas if you do the lowest common denominator, you clear out both fractions all at once. So that's why this way is a little bit more work, but whatever is going to work for you. Okay, so we have to go negative 3 on both sides and negative 3. So then we're left with a little bit of work to do here, as I said. So we have negative 7 over 2, and we're going to put a negative 3 in there. Well, this could be negative 3 over 1. We'd have to get common denominators to add those two together. So negative 7 over 2, and of course that's going to be 6 over 2, negative 7, and negative 6. Adding fractions would be negative 13 over 2, which if you remember is what we got before, and that's negative 7.5. So I don't know if I'd prefer that method as much, just because you still have more fraction work to deal with. If you can swing this method, it'd be better, smoother, easier if you can get your head around that. The only thing is, as I said, you have to remember to do this sort of extra little step. But a little bit of practice should help there. Okay, so that sort of sets us up a little bit on section 8.2. I'll show you one other little step here, one other little thing. So with this problem, it's a little different than back here where we had the two fractions. And this one we only have just one here, and it happens to be where the variable is. So this one's not too bad. You can multiply by negative 3, and again, that does a clean cancel here, and then you can multiply this side by negative 3. I'm going to cheat a little bit here. Late hours, better cheat. Negative, what did I say, 59.4. And then we have this fellow here. So pretty good, we sort of got rid of that all at once. And then we do a negative 4.2 and a negative 4.2 here. Oops, sorry. So I've got P left on this side. And then what have we got? 63.6, negative 63.6 on this side. So that one's not going to be too bad. A little bit easier than if we had the two fractions on either side. So I hope that helps a little bit. Maybe we'll post this video too and see if it makes it a little bit easier if you need to review things.